Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Thursday, March 2nd, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. The NFL Scouting Combine continues in Indianapolis, and today we're going to hear from Andy Reid and General Manager Brett Veach. They met with reporters for a little more than 10 minutes each earlier this week, and you'll hear their interviews here. Andy Reid covers such topics as the Super Bowl victory and the way the Chiefs use small wide receivers, how the NFL draft will play in Kansas City next month, and much more. Veach talks mainly about how the 2022 Super Bowl champion Chiefs were put together and what needs to be done for 2023. No big revelations here, but he speaks to the futures of such players as Orlando Brown Jr. and Frank Clark. Now, before we get started, know this. For the most part, the questions asked by the reporters are inaudible. I wish they would put a microphone over them in the seating area. But we think you'll be able to deduce the questions based on the responses. I will say that Veach is asked about a deal getting done with a certain player about halfway through his interview, and if you're not 100% sure who he's speaking about, it's Frank Clark. Okay, let's go to the Combine and hear first from Andy Reid and then Brett Veach.
Yeah, no, I do. I have a lot of respect for Marty and what he did in the National Football League. Won a lot of games with a couple different organizations, and he was just a heck of a guy. He not only was a player, but then he touched the league as a coach and helped make the game better.
Coach, looking back at the Super Bowl just 2 weeks ago, were there any moments of doubt creeping into your own mind? What was your mindset at halftime, being down 10? Patrick's kind of limping around. What was your mindset? Were there any moments of doubt?
No, there wasn't. 10 points isn't a lot. When you've got a good offense and Pat Mahomes, so I wasn't too worried about that. I just want to make sure we were off a tick, so I was just making sure we get back on the same page and with the guys and the coaches and on both sides of the ball. We were able to do that. We got a couple stops on defense and a couple scores on offense. Yeah, I think both of them, Sky and KT, will probably have bigger roles. As they come in, they'll be more familiar with the offense mainly, and so you can utilize them in different ways. Both of them are very talented. Really like their attitude towards the game, and we'll just see. We'll see how that goes once we get to camp and the OTAs. I think it's great for Kansas City. I think it's great for the National Football League. Brett Veach doesn't have to go too far. It's all right there. So, but listen, I'm mainly happy for the city and for the NFL for bringing it there. Great city.
What do you make of it now that you've played the Bengals extensively in the last couple of years? What do you make of that type of and that kind of matchup as you guys get more familiarity in the regular season?
Yeah, so the Bengals are a really good football team, and it's because of that, two good football teams playing each other. It's developed this rivalry, if you want to call it that. So the way I look at it, it's a well-coached football team, and they've got good players, and so it's a great challenge, and that's why we're in this. That's why we're in this business. So a lot of fun. Those games are a lot of fun. Great competition. Yeah, well, I think his future is great. I think he's a great kid. I had a chance to spend a little time with him at the 101, and so in Kansas City there, where he was the NFC Offensive Player of the Year. So but very sharp, and he had a phenomenal Super Bowl. And that's about as much pressure as you're going to have. And he came out and threw for a ton of yards and ran for a ton. So I think Philadelphia's in good hands right there.
He obviously taking a new job with Washington. Your general thoughts on him leaving the organization and the elevation and promotion of Matt Nagy to the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, so I'm so happy for EB to have a chance to put his name on an offense, and this is his now. He's working for Ron Rivera, who's a dear friend, and more of a defensive head coach than offensive head coach. So this allows EB to do his thing, and I'm happy for him. I wish, and I'm wishing him luck with that. I'm also wishing him luck going forward. Obviously we're trying to get him to become a head coach. It didn't work out that way, but that's not, it's not over yet. So I think he's going to do a heck of a job here and really be able to show his personality within the offense.
Andy, with the Super Bowl being kind of the way it is now, what have you done since then?
Yeah, I've worked on staff things. Herbie mentioned Matt Nagy, and so there's a process you have to go through and talk to people and interview people, and so that's what I did. And between Pep Hamilton, who was phenomenal, Marcus Brady, phenomenal, and then our own guy Matt Nagy that was here. Phenomenal interviews, and just talking football is incredible. I got to do this for a good week, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And it just tells me that the league's in good hands. We got some good coaches out there, and I'm excited about that. Yeah.
So as Matt Nagy is concerned, you look at the quarterback, but now he's offensive coordinator. Is he retaining the kind of quarterback coach, or is David Girardi going to be a natural promotion?
Yeah, so Dave would be, I'll end up announcing that here. Well, I guess I'm doing it right here, Herbie. So, yeah, David will work into that. Again, I went through an interview process there. So it's Bush Hamden from Boise State was one of the guys I talked to. Again, he's at the college level. He had been with the Falcons at the college level, but, college football is in good hands with him. So Boise State, I'm happy for them. But but he's the natural fit in there, and that's what he'll be doing. Yeah.
Coach, have you had the chance to talk to Patrick since he made his decision?
Yeah, no, I have. We're all very happy for him. I was that press conference was unbelievable, and so here he is in the state capital or in the country's capital, and I can't tell you how heck it could end up being president.
When you have a quarterback who's at a high level, what's the biggest challenge to make sure that you sustain and help him grow when you've got some of these times?
Sure. Well, you're always going to try to bring things to the table that are new for him, and so he can continue to grow. He wants to grow, which is the most important thing. He wants to be the best, which is important. And he's going to work his tail off. He's already started, so but that's how he's wired. And so as coaches, you're going, hey, let's gather up some good stuff for him so we can add to the repertoire of plays that he already has. Frank Clark. Yeah, so I actually talked to him at the parade, so that's where I ended up talking to him. He had to do some stuff for the actual exit physical, but I had a good talk with him. I love Frank Clark. It's just, Veach has got to juggle all these different things going on, and Frank is he's top notch guy. I love him to death. Yeah, well, it depends on who you're giving the ball to. That helps. I think it's a good scheme part of things. If you're talking that schematically, you put these defensive ends in a little bit of a bind. But other than that, I mean, we could talk, Jess. You want to go? We can go somewhere and talk, Jess.
Couple more, guys.
What are your thoughts on this rookie class? You just had so many contributors, and now obviously them entering the second year. You guys have a lot of picks this year. Does that give you more flexibility than maybe normal? All these young mids on rookie deals coming back to you?
Well, I tell you, yes. I mean, anytime you have the young guys, all these young guys that have made it, it does give you some flexibility. You know, you've signed your quarterback to a contract there, so that helps too. So you kind of know where the money is and what you can do with it. But Brett's down here and with his crew looking at more new guys. And so we want to take those picks and add to it. I'm sure he's going to talk to you after I do here, so you can ask him. But the job that he did with his guys, I mean, second to none, I would say.
Thinking about the amount of young talent you guys had, especially the quarterback position, is it possible you can see maybe both of them meeting again in this year?
Well, yeah. I mean, you know this, but it's a long road to get there. A lot of things can happen, so I'm not very good at predicting the future. But all the coaches that are talking here are making that their goal to get there, and so that's we're no different than that. We're making that our goal, and as the Eagles are, and Howie's done a great job of bringing that influx of new players to them, and Nick's done a good job coaching them, so they've got a good football team for sure.
Coach, what are some big things that teams who are evaluating quarterbacks here need to be aware of when they're betting big on those specific traits, kind of like the Chiefs?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to ask one that needs one. I would tell you, you're always a lot of people get caught up on the arm strength. That's one thing, but that's not necessarily the most important thing. It's how the player handles the game, you know, from the feet to the head, and you've got to also be a leader on top of all that. So, you know, a little bit in a nutshell there, but that's those are kind of the primary things.
Last one.
Coach, what's the last couple of weeks look like for you and your coaching staff getting caught up to the guys that have talked with this?
Yeah, it's your first opportunity to visit with these guys, which I think is good. And people say, well, the answers are canned. Well, they're not. It depends on what you're asking them. There's, you know, and how you maneuver around that and present to them. But you get a little taste of what they're about. It's the first, for the coaches, it's the first opportunity to meet with them. And then it goes from there, whether it's the 30 visits, watching more tape, all that, you know. That's kind of what this is good for. Good seeing you.
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There's Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening.
All right, really just to put a bow on last season, I mean, what an amazing year. And really just looking back on the last 5 years, I mean, 5 AFC championship games at Arrowhead, 3 AFC titles and 2 Super Bowl wins. I don't think you have that level of success unless your organization is operating on a high level throughout the department. So just really quickly want to thank Clark Hunt, Mark Donovan, our amazing coaching staff. You know, 2 groups that seem to always get overlooked, but at this time of year I always want to make sure I say a special thank you to them, and that's our training staff, Rick Burkholder and his crew do an amazing job, and Ted Cruz and his staff. I mean, these guys do so much behind the scenes, and they take a lot of stress off of coach and my staff, and also take a lot of stress off of Pat Mahomes. So that's a big deal for us. So I want to thank Ted, and then lastly, my staff. Love seeing them this time of year. You know, last year we came here and there was a lot of questions about our roster and, you know, how do we turn the page? And I think when you have the GM Blue Book, it kind of says smart in free agency and built through the draft. And I think I've learned over the years that as you have more and more success, that becomes more difficult because the players cost more and you're picking late in the draft. So, last year we really had to, slam dunk this thing from start to finish, and it was one of those years that GM dreams of. Just, everything seemed like worked out, whether, it was the off season with Juju, MVS, and Jay Reid, Carlos, and then the draft. Players from Trent McDuffie all the way down to Isaiah Pacheco, rounds 1 through 7, helping us out. So we'll certainly be happy to take the pats in the back this combine, but once we leave here, it'll be starting from scratch again, and we'll be ready for that challenge. So with that, I'll take your questions.
What are your plans specifically to Orlando Brown this season with the franchise tag? Is that an option, or are you looking at something else?
Yeah, I mean, it's an option. We went through this path last year, and as always, Herbie, it's more beneficial for us to get something done long term, and that's why this season is so important for us, and really this is the start. I mean, we'll have a lot of dialogue. As I mean, the Combine's great to come in here and check out the new college talent, but a lot of the time here we're spent talking with the agents of our players. So start exchanging information now. Unlike last year, I think we have at least a runway to work with, and we've gotten to know his team a little bit better. So we're excited to get that process started here, and hopefully we can get something figured out.
And you mentioned that because last year you didn't have an agent. How beneficial is it, do you think?
Yeah.
Of the progress this year?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big deal because I don't think we started that until really late in the process, and time became a factor there. So I think that's certainly gonna help facilitate things, and we'll just go to work right away and see what we can get done. Yeah, I think the unique thing about Patrick is he can really play any style of football, and we've seen it throughout his career. I mean, he can play the up-tempo run and gun stuff, but I think, last year was a good kind of turning point for our team, and, we saw a lot of different coverages, and teams forced us to play patient. But I think, when we looked at that trade last year, I think in our mindset we knew you're not going to find another Tyreek Hill, so let's just go out there and get good football players. And the cool thing and the advantage that we had is that Pat can play any style of football, so he can work with the bigger receivers and play more of a tempoed game and just play the small game if we have to. So I don't think we ever thought we're going to go out there and find another Tyreek Hill. Certainly speed and athleticism, versatility will always be at the top of our list, but really we just want to collect good football players. I don't think the age one, as far as Tyreek Hill, I mean, that speed, I mean, any team is going to want that. I think it's probably more imperative depending on the quarterback. I mean, like I said, the cool thing about having Pat Mahomes is certainly if you get him a Tyreek Hill, it makes your team more dangerous. But I think Pat showed yesterday that, or not yesterday, but last year, that he can, work with a variety of skill sets and be effective. Good. Yeah, I mean, the Senior Bowl is certainly a very high priority list for us in regards to how we come about our process. And Jim Nagy, I mean, he's worked in the league for a long time. I mean, he knows what we're looking for, and he does a great job of reaching out to GMs, reaching out to scouting directors to make sure that game is run the way it needs to be. And I think if you just look at our roster, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Noah Gray, Kadarius Toney, the two corners last year, I think if you just look at our roster, I think it kind of tells the story of how important the Senior Bowl is for us. Yep. Well, I mean, it's funny because, Denver started to turn the corner there right at the end of the season and played some really good football. And now with Coach Payton, I mean, they'll be even more dangerous. And I think Russell kind of got into a groove late. Our division is really tough, and I think that was one of the things that really helped us in our playoff run. I think, playing, the Chargers twice a year and the Raiders, and, the Broncos got off to a little bit of a slow start, but I think they played good football late. And certainly Coach Payton only adds to the degree of difficulty of having to get through that. So that'll certainly be a challenge. What was the second part of your question? Oh, okay, yep. Mm-hmm.
Say, maybe it's beneficial to keep him and just add on a little little more money and save a lot anyway? Or do you feel like at this point you need the cap space with brand names being tagged so much?
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably, to a certain extent, need some cap space, but, we have a long history with him and his agent, too, so he'll be one of the many conversations we have this week, and look forward to getting with him and seeing if we can work something out that makes sense for both parties. Yeah, I mean, it's extremely difficult. I think you just got to be buttoned up on your free agency plan. I don't think you can go in there and have, a set of A, B, C, D. I mean, you have to just, have a plan, stick to it, and knock it out of the park. And if the plan doesn't work, you got to move on quickly. And I just think the level of communication that we have with our coaching staff, because, I mean, you do obviously have to hit on the draft. And, when you have the rapport that we have with my staff and our coaching staff, I think it helps in that process because, the scheme and the vision and the fit, I mean, we're all on the same page. And I just think the fact that Coach and I have worked together for so long, and even Coach Spags and I have been together for a long time now, I think that continuity is something that has really helped us transition to that second part of Pat's contract where it is difficult. But I think you guys saw last year that, all the rookies that we drafted, I mean, were major contributors. So I think it's very difficult to do, but I think the continuity plays a huge role in our success. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge advantage for us just because I think we know what our offseason looks like for the, by and large. I mean, it's always going to change, and I mean, look, the cap's going to go up now, and hopefully now we have had some successful off seasons and everything's back to normal, knock on wood. Things will continue to get better and better and better, but the big part or the big piece of that puzzle is something that we have a degree of certainty, and things will have to get changed and adjusted as we go there as well. But just knowing that Pat will be here for a long time, and knowing that's the biggest part of that pie is accounted for, just helps us focus our attention on the offense and defensive side and not have to worry about the most important piece.
Couple more, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we always try to stick to best available. It's probably a cookie-cutter line all GMs use, and it does become difficult sometimes when you have certain position groups that are really deep, because you do think maybe he's a little higher in value, but there's depth in that position, so maybe you can get something similar. So it's just working the board and really trusting your guys at the end of the day. Handicapping teams and their needs is a big part of that, and that's where our pro department comes into play in this college process, just kind of projecting what other teams will do. But I mean, yeah, you always try to stick to just the best player, because it is a game of attrition, so you can sit there and think that you're deep at a position. I remember a few years ago we thought we were really deep at defensive line, and within the first 3 or 4 weeks we lost 3 of them. So you always want to make sure you take the best player. Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, that's a fair question. It's a good question. I mean, on one end, we have Pat's deal done. On the other end, we'll certainly have to monitor the rest of these deals, and we have a lot of years with Pat contracts. So I mean, that's something we'll have to read and adjust as time goes. But I mean, we'll just see. I mean, all these teams, are structurally different. How they handle contracts like this are different, and how the cash flows are different. So it'll be an interesting time frame, and we had to go through that. That hurdle there. Now Cincinnati and San Diego and these teams have to go through that there. So I'm kind of like you. I'm anxious to see how they work their deals, and we'll be taking a look at every aspect of how they do that.
Last question.
We're talking about the receiver position going to the draft. 2019 Metcalf's in there. You guys move up since last year. George Pickens is sitting there, and Luke Downs, Steelers picking to just take Scott Moore.
Yeah.
Just can you talk about those two, the draft picks and the decisions, and then your overall philosophy on the receiver position? Because what in a different direction with the smaller, more athletic guys versus the bigger physical guys?
Yeah, I don't think that the physical attributes in regards to we're looking for good football players, and we're also looking for a room fit, a cultural fit, how they fit with our coaching staff. I mean, there's so many things that we take in consideration. Every year when you have these drafts and you see whether it be a mock draft or guys listed on the board. I mean, I think people tend to forget that there's a lot of dialogue. It's not like the Chiefs like smaller receivers. No, I mean, we like good football players, but do they pass the medical? Do they pass the interviews with our coaches, with our offensive coordinator, with our receiver coach, with our head coach? Is the chemistry there? Do they feel like they'll be a good blend in our locker room with our current receiving group? So there's a lot of things that factor into it. And, I think in both those cases, I think we felt like the fit from the health medical grades to the, how they interviewed with us and, how we thought they'd come in and catch on quickly and how we can move them around, things like that. I think we take all that into consideration, and sometimes there are factors, and I'm not saying anything to do with those two guys, but just as a whole, I think there's a lot of underlying information that we have to just be accountable for, and sometimes they move you in a different direction, and you continue to just move on and learn from each experience.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC staff of Randy Mason, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. The best digital sports section on the web is Morning Sports Edition. You'll get updates on the Combine, spring training, college basketball, the NBA, the NHL, everything that happens in sports in and around Kansas City and nationally. You'll find it in Morning Sports Edition. To see what I'm talking about, go to liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in Kansas City every day.